We're breaking down every 2026 Senate race, starting on the East Coast with a very exciting race in Maine. Graham Plattner is out, Troy Jackson is in. A former state senator, Jackson ran for governor in 2026, making it to the third round of ranked choice voting. He's backed by Bernie Sanders, the AFL-CIO, Maine DSA, and many more. He's up against incumbent Republican Susan Collins, who has held the seat since 1996. In addition to her power of incumbency, Collins also has a massive fundraising advantage. We don't have much polling, but a recent UNH poll actually found Jackson leading Collins. We'll see how that number holds up. I think the Plattner controversies have really put Democrats in a massive hole they'll struggle to climb out of, so I have the race lean Collins for now. One thing working for Democrats nationwide is the very friendly environment due to Trump's unpopularity. Generic ballot polling has Democrats at +7. For context, in the 2018 blue wave, Democrats were polling at +7.3 in the generic ballot, ultimately winning by a spread of 8.4. That's the type of edge that could really help carry Democrats in states like New Hampshire, where incumbent Democrat Shaheen is not seeking re-election. The primaries won't be held until September 8th, but Democrat Chris Pappas and Republican John Sununu are the frontrunners. Head-to-head polling has consistently showed Pappas winning, but by very narrow margins, and those polls are quite old. Considering the favorable environment and that Democrats have performed well in statewide federal elections in New Hampshire over the past several years, I have this race lean Democrat. Massachusetts is another state that hasn't held its primaries yet, and I think the Democratic primary will be more interesting than the general election. Incumbent Ed Markey faces moderate Seth Moulton in what is shaping up to be another ideological battle inside the Democratic primary. I think whoever wins coasts to a victory in November. I have this race safe Democrat. Rhode Island is another safe Democratic seat. Incumbent Jack Reed is going to win, as is Democrat Cory Booker, who is running for re-election in New Jersey. He wins easily. In Delaware, incumbent Democrat Chris Coons is running for re-election. He's going to win, and incumbent Democrat Mark Warner of Virginia will win easily. On the flip side, in West Virginia, incumbent Republican Shelley Moore Capito will be re-elected as senator. So let's move on now to a competitive race, but before we do, if you're enjoying this video, hit that thumbs up, it helps a lot. In North Carolina, Democrat Roy Cooper takes on Republican Michael Whatley in the race for Tom Tillis's seat. Cooper is the state's former governor, while Whatley is the former chair of the state GOP. Cooper has raised 3 times as much as Whatley and currently has more than $20 million cash on hand. Head-to-head polling has consistently showed Cooper leading beyond the margin of error, and considering the favorable environment for Democrats right now, plus that lack of incumbency advantage on either side, I think you have to consider this race lean Democrat right now. There's more to talk about in South Carolina than normal. That's because Lindsey Graham passed away on July 11th and was replaced by Darlene Graham, his sister. A special primary is being held on August 11th to determine the Republican nominee. Graham is the front-runner with the support of Donald Trump, but recent polling shows that race will be competitive. On the Democratic side, Annie Andrews is a serious candidate, having raised more than $10 million for this race. If the primary gets ugly, does Andrews have a chance? Probably not. This race is likely GOP for me right now, and I'll probably bump it up to safe GOP once the dust settles on that special primary. Georgia is another competitive race, and the fundraising numbers are wild for incumbent Democrat Jon Ossoff. That's $97 million raised, $42 million cash on hand. He's raised more than $90 million more than his opponent Mike Collins, who currently serves in the House of Representatives. Current polling shows Ossoff ahead beyond the margin of error, and combining the fundraising edge, polling lead, favorable environment, and incumbency advantage, I have Georgia as a tilt Democratic state right now. In Florida, incumbent Republican Ashley Moody is the frontrunner, but the primaries have yet to be held. On the Democratic side, there's another ideological battle between Angie Nixon, the progressive, and the more moderate Alexander Vindman. I think it's Vindman's primary to lose, as he has an absolutely massive fundraising advantage. But regardless of who wins, Moody is definitely the favorite, as polls show her well ahead of either Democrat, and on top of that, Florida has really taken a hard right turn over the past decade. I have this state likely GOP. Moving west to Alabama, Republican Barry Moore takes on Democrat Everett Wess Incumbent Tommy Tuberville is running for governor, which means congratulations to Senator Barry Moore, safe GOP. And in Mississippi, incumbent Senator Cindy Hyde Smith is running for re-election. She'll win easily, safe Republican. At the risk of sounding like a broken record for two more races here, incumbent Republican Bill Hagerty is running for re-election in Tennessee. He'll win that race by double digits, safe GOP. And in Kentucky, Republican Andy Barr and Democrat Charles Booker are running to fill Mitch McConnell's Senate seat. If Charles Booker sounds familiar, he was the candidate who ran against Rand Paul in 2022. He lost that race by 23 points. He's not going to do much better here, safe GOP. Now on to a couple competitive states. Before that, if you're still here, hit that subscribe button for more election updates, and let's talk Ohio. Democrat and former Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown faces John Husted, who was appointed to fill J.D. Vance's vacant seat. So he is technically the incumbent, but perhaps that's not as powerful as your typical incumbency advantage. Brown has a significant fundraising advantage. Polls are a bit out of date, and what we did have showed Brown with an extremely small lead. Ohio used to be the bellwether state, but has taken a bit of a rightward turn over the past decade. Right now, this race is a true toss-up, but I don't like leaving blank spots on the map. I think Brown is a pretty strong candidate for Ohio and was more of a victim of a really poor national environment in 2024 when he lost his Senate race to Bernie Moreno. It's a better environment, he's got the fundraising edge. We'll see how the polls shake out, but right now I have Ohio as tilt Democrat. And on to the Senate race that people are talking most about right now, Michigan. Abdul El-Sayed just won the Democratic primary despite being outspent 10-1 by the establishment's preferred candidate. He's now facing off against Mike Rogers, a former House representative who ran for Senate in 2024 and lost to Alyssa Slotkin by 0.3%. Despite a contentious primary, the party has unified around El-Sayed, and I really think he's the frontrunner in this race right now because of that favorable environment in a state that still tilts blue. The fundraising numbers are pretty similar, and El-Sayed has already demonstrated he can overcome being heavily outspent. Polls were tight before the primaries, and I'm expecting there to be some sort of post-primary bump for El-Sayed's numbers here. I think this is really another toss-up state, but I have it tilt Democrat right now. In Minnesota, incumbent Democrat Tina Smith is not seeking re-election, and we won't know who the candidates are until the August 11th primary. Polling in Minnesota is pretty dated at this point, but both Angie Craig and Penny Flanagan, the Democratic primary frontrunners, are leading Republican Michelle Tafoya head-to-head. It has been more than 20 years since a Republican has won a Senate race in Minnesota. It's a strong environment for Democrats, and I think whoever wins the primary has the clear edge. Minnesota is likely Democrat for me. Iowa is another state that could be interesting. Incumbent Republican Joni Ernst is not running for re-election. Instead, Republican Ashley Hinson is facing Democrat Josh Turek in the general election. We've seen Iowa trend rightward over the past 10 years or so since Obama carried the state in 2008 and 2012. We actually do have some recent polling in this race showing Hinson ahead by 3 points, which was within the margin of error. Hinson also has a bit of a fundraising edge, so I'm putting this race lean Republican right now. Illinois, on the other hand, will not be interesting, even though incumbent Democrat Dick Durbin is not seeking re-election. Democrat Juliana Stratton should beat Don Tracy pretty easily, safe Democrat. Arkansas also won't be too interesting. Incumbent Senator Tom Cotton is running for re-election. He's got more money, he's ahead in the polls, he's going to beat Hallie Schaffner, safe GOP. The interesting part of the Louisiana Senate race has already come and gone. Incumbent Republican Bill Cassidy, a critic of Donald Trump, lost the primary to Julia Letlow. Her opponent will be Jamie Davis, who doesn't even have a Wikipedia photo. This race is safe Republican. Before getting to Texas, let's knock out some of these uncompetitive states. In South Dakota, incumbent Republican Mike Rounds will defeat independent Brian Bangs. In Kansas, incumbent Republican Roger Marshall will defeat Democrat Adam Hamilton. In Oklahoma, Kevin Hern will beat whoever the Democrats end up nominating. In New Mexico, Democrat Ben Ray Lujan will defeat Larry Marker. In Colorado, incumbent Democrat John Hickenlooper will defeat Republican Mark Paisley. And in Wyoming, incumbent Republican Cynthia Lummis won't seek re-election. However, Harriet Hageman is the frontrunner in the GOP primary, and whoever wins that primary will be the state's next senator. In Idaho, a state where Democrats haven't won a Senate seat in more than 50 years, incumbent Jim Risch will defeat independent Todd Achilles. And in Oregon, incumbent Democrat Jeff Merkley will defeat David Brock Smith. All right, let's head back to Nebraska, where incumbent Republican Pete Ricketts will face off against independent Dan Osborn, who made a name for himself in the 2024 Senate race against Deb Fischer, which he ultimately lost by 4.5%. He now finds himself in a similar situation, an uphill battle in a historically conservative state, except now he has a bit more name recognition and a more favorable political environment. One area where Osborn is currently lacking this time, though, is fundraising. He's being outraised 2-1 right now. In the absence of any polling data here, I think I have to give the edge to the incumbent lean GOP. By the time you watch this video, the Montana Senate race may change drastically. It's currently a three-way race between Republican Kurt Alme, Democrat Alani Bankhead, and Independent Seth Bodnar. A variety of Democrats, unions, and liberal organizations are backing Bodnar, and many Democrats are trying to get Bankhead to drop out of the race. It's clear to see why. In a three-way race, Alme cruises to victory as Bankhead and Bodnar split the rest of the vote. In a two-way race, either candidate could make that race very competitive. And it's no surprise why many Democrats actually prefer the independent in this race. Bodnar has raised the most amount of money of any candidate and polls better than Bankhead in head-to-head matchups. In a three-way race, this is a safe GOP seat. In a two-way race, I still think it's lean Republican. Either way, this state is in the red column right now. So let's head over to Texas, where Attorney General Ken Paxton takes on Democrat James Talarico, a member of the Texas House of Representatives. He defeated Jasmine Crockett in a competitive primary earlier this year. Texas is a historically conservative state, despite the 2018 scare that Beto O'Rourke gave Ted Cruz. So is this the year that Texas finally turns blue? Working in Democrats' favor is that incumbent John Cornyn lost his primary election. Talarico also has a massive fundraising edge, about 7-1 as of June 30th. Recent polls also show Talarico with narrow leads, though they have generally been within the margin of error, and Ken Paxton does have some pretty poor approval ratings. If this was Michigan or Pennsylvania or North Carolina, I'd have this race pretty clearly in the tilt or lean Democrat column. But it's Texas. The historical trends and demographics matter. Toss-up is a perfectly fine rating here, and this race is definitely one to watch. For now, I think there are too many checks in the Talarico column to put this as anything other than tilt Democrat. Leave your comments down below to tell me why you disagree, and while you're doing that, I'm going to talk about Alaska, the state that's going to determine whether there's a tie in the Senate or a Democratic majority. The nonpartisan primary takes place on August 18th, so we don't have a complete picture of what the race actually is going to look like come November. But what we do know is that incumbent Republican Dan Sullivan and Democrat Mary Peltola will be two of the four candidates on the general election ballot come November. In a normal year with normal candidates, Sullivan would have to be the favorite, but it's a very favorable environment for Democrats, and Peltola is the only Democrat to win statewide election in Alaska since 2008. Peltola and Sullivan have similar levels of cash on hand, and the only recent reliable poll shows Sullivan ahead within the margin of error. Anyone who confidently predicts this race right now is just lying to you. For me, I'm going to give you a wishy-washy tilt Republican right now because of the incumbency advantage for Sullivan. And that brings us to 50-50 in the Senate with our tiebreaker, J.D. Vance. What do you think? Let me know in the comments section down below, and thanks so much for watching.